Hello friends, I am Vivek Nahadia. I am a chartered accountant company secretary. You can contact me on cavivek68@gmail.com. I hope you find this video useful. Thank you for watching.
Hi, in this video we will be discussing about the labor and industrial laws. This subject is of LLB third semester. The units that we will be discussing here are Unit 1, Trade Unions Act, Trade Unions Act. Number 2, Industrial Disputes Act, Industrial Disputes Act. Number 3, Industrial Employment Act, Industrial Employment Act. Number 4, Disciplinary Proceedings in Industries. Actually, the second unit is 2 and 3. This is 4, and the fifth one is Disciplinary Proceedings in Industries. Proceedings in Industries. So, what are the units that we'll be discussing? In labor and industrial laws, trade unions, 2 and 3, Industrial Disputes Act, then fourth one is the Industrial Employment Act, then disciplinary proceedings in industries. Let's start with the unit 1, which is the Trade Unions Act. The Trade Unions Act 1926. First question. History of the trade union movement in India. You can keep writing while we discuss the topics, that is while watching the video itself. This question has been asked about twice in OU examinations. Webb's, WEBBS, Webb's has defined trade union as it is a continuous association. It is a continuous association of wage earners. Suppose these are wage earners. Association of wage earners for, why is this association created? For maintaining or improving the conditions of their working lives. The birthplace of trade unionism was the Great Britain. So trade union means it is a continuous association of wage earners for the purpose of maintaining or improving the conditions of their working lives. The birthplace of trade unionism was the Great Britain. Trade union has started in Great Britain first. From here it came to India. From the Great Britain, the trade unionism kept in India. The history of trade unionism in India can be studied by dividing it in three periods. India, we can study the trade unionism by dividing it in 3 periods. Number 1, period prior to First World War. Period prior to this. The second that we can divide is period between the 2 world wars and or up to independence. Between 2 world wars up to independence. This is the second category. And the third category is from independence till now. So this is called post-independence. So to summarize, history of the trade union movement in India. Trade union means what? It is a continuous association of wage earners. It is just an association of wage earners for maintaining their life or improving their lives. Simple words. It has begun in Great Britain. From here it came to India, and in India we divide it into 3 parts. Period before the First World War. Second part is the period between the 2 world wars and up to independence. And the third part is post-independence. Now let us discuss the definitions of trade union and trade dispute. Trade union. Trade union trade union means any combination, whether temporary or permanent. So it says that basically trade union is a combination, and this combination can be either temporary or permanent. Second, trade union means any combination, whether temporary or permanent, formed primarily for the purpose of regulating the relations between, and this is formed, what is the purpose of formation? To regulate relations between whom? Between workmen and employers. This is an employer and these are his workmen. So trade unions are formed to regulate the relations between them, employer and his workmen, or between employer and his workmen, or between the workmen themselves, between the workmen, or between one employer and another employer, so between them, or for imposing restrictive conditions on the conduct of any trade or business. This means that trade unions can even impose some restrictions on the conduct of business, how the business should be conducted and all. Regarding that also, the trade unions are formed to regulate this, whether the business has been carried on properly or not, etc. And includes any federation of 2 or more trade unions. So one trade union plus one trade union of another area plus one more trade union, this combination there results in a bigger trade union. So this is called a federation of trade union. So this definition of trade union includes the federation also. To summarize, what is the definition of trade union? Trade union means it is a combination. First, what you consider, it's a combination, and such combination can be temporary for a short period or it can be permanent also. What is the purpose of trade union? This formation regulates the relationships between the employer and its employees, employer and its workmen, that is employer and its workmen, or between the workmen themselves, or between one employer with another employer, or they can regulate the business, and it includes the Federation of Trade Unions also. Now we'll discuss about the meaning of trade dispute. What is trade dispute? Trade dispute covers disputes between, as we have discussed earlier, it covers the disputes between employer and the workmen, or between workmen, or between one employer and another employer. So all the disputes between employer and his workmen, or between the workmen, or between one employer or another employer, these disputes are called trade disputes. Discuss the registration of trade unions. Registration. This is an important question, and it has been asked in the OU examinations many times, as state the procedure for the registration of trade union as mentioned in the Trade Unions Act. Registration of trade unions. First, we will split the process of registration into several steps. Number 1, we will be discussing about the appointment of registrars. Number 2, is powers of the registrars. Number 3, mode of registration. Number 4, application for registration. Number 5, provisions to be contained in the rules of a trade union. Provisions to be contained in rules of the trade union. Number 6, power to call for further information. Number 7, registration. Number 8, certificate of registration. Number 9, that's it. So we have divided the steps of registration into 8 points, that is application, appointment of registrars, then we'll talk about the powers, mode of registration, application for registration, provisions to be contained in the rules of a trade union, power to call for further information, registration, and certificate of registration. So let us discuss the first point, which is appointment of registrars. The first point is appointment of registrars. Registrar. First we'll understand what is the meaning of registrar. Registrar means a registrar of a trade union appointed by the appropriate government. So appropriate government appoints a registrar for trade union. And this is the first point. Second point is, in relation to any trade union, the registrar appointed for the state in which the head or registered office of the trade union is situated. Where the head office of the trade union is situated, for that state, a registrar will be appointed. So what is the meaning of registrar? It means the registrar appointed by the appropriate government, or the registrar appointed for the head office, for the state in which the head office of the trade union is situated. The appropriate government may also appoint as many registrars of the trade unions as it thinks fit and necessary. Now we'll discuss about the powers of registrars. This is the second point, powers of registrars. First point is registration. Registration. The registrar is the competent person to register a trade union. So who registers a trade union? He is the registrar. He shall maintain a register of trade unions. What will he do? This is a registrar. What will he do? He will maintain a register of trade unions. He may reject the application. He may ask for further information. He may ask to change name of a trade union if it is identical with any existing one. Certificate of registration. This is the first point. Second point in this is the certificate of registration. After registering a trade union, the registrar issues a certificate of registration to the trade union. Cancellation of registration. Under certain circumstances, the registrar is empowered to cancel the registration of trade unions. I repeat, registration of trade unions, we are dividing the process into 8 parts. First is appointment of registrars, and the second one is powers of registrars. In the powers of registrar, we have already discussed the power of the registrar to register, then issue certificate of registration. The third one is cancellation of registration. Cancellation of registration. Fourth power is dissolution of registration. Fifth power is amalgamation of trade unions. Amalgamation means trade union 1, trade union 2, trade union 3, several etc. trade unions combine to form one trade union big example. So this is called amalgamation of trade unions. So the registrar has power to amalgamate trade unions also. Now the third point is mode of registration. Mode of registration. Mode of registration. Registration, we have discussed about the appointment of registrars, and what we have discussed in the appointment of registrars, the registrar means the registrar appointed by the appropriate government, and the government may appoint as many registrars as it thinks fit. Then we discussed about the powers of registrars, and we discussed about how many powers? Around 5 to 6 powers. The first one is the power of registration. Registrar is the competent person to register a trade union. He shall maintain a register of trade unions. He may reject the application. He may ask for further information. He may ask to change the name of the trade union if it is identical with any existing one. Then the second point we discussed about the certificate of registration. After registering a trade union, the registrar issues a certificate of registration to the trade union. And the third power that we discussed is the cancellation of registration. The fourth power is dissolution of registration. Fifth power is amalgamation of trade unions. So we have discussed the appointment of registrars, powers, and now we are discussing the mode of registration. Any 7 or more persons greater than or equal to 7 persons of a trade union may apply for registration of the trade union under this act. Simple. So what is the mode of registration? 7 or more persons of the trade union should apply for registration. Then we'll discuss about the application for registration. Application for registration. Every application for registration of a trade union shall be made to the registrar. So these 7 or more persons, they make an application to registrar. Every application for registration of a trade union shall be made to the registrar and shall be accompanied by a copy of rules of the trade union. So what this application should accompany? This application should be, first one is application should be submitted, and this application should be accompanied by copy of rules of the trade union and a statement of following particulars. Rules must be given and a statement must be given. What must be included in the statement? The names, occupations, and addresses of the members making the application. 7 or more persons are making the application, no? So what details are required of these members? Their names, their occupations, their addresses. This statement should even contain name of the trade union and the address of the head office. Trade union's name and head office address. Third, titles, names, ages, addresses, and occupations of the office bearers of the trade union. Their names, age, address, etc. To repeat, application for registration. Every application for registration of a trade union shall be made to the registrar and shall be accompanied by a copy of the rules. Application by 7 or more persons will be made to the registrar and shall be accompanied by application, and the application will be made, and that application will include rules and statement. What will statement include? The statement will include the details of the 7 or more persons making the application. What are the details? Their names, occupations, addresses, then the name of the trade union and the address of its head office, then the details of the office bearers like titles, name, ages, addresses, and occupations of the office bearers. So let us come to the steps. In registration we have discussed the appointment of registrars, then the powers of the registrars, then mode of registration where we said that any 7 or more persons of a trade union may apply for registration. Then we discussed about the application for registration, where we said that the application must be accompanied by rules and a statement containing the details of the members making the application, details of the office bearers, and the name of the trade union and address of the head office. Now we'll discuss about the provisions to be contained in the rules of a trade union. Provisions to be contained in the rules of a trade union. What provisions must be contained in the rules of trade union? It must contain name of the trade union, objects for which the trade union has been established, objects of the trade union. Third, list of members of the trade union. Fourth, list of office bearers of the trade union, etc. I repeat, provisions to be contained in the rules of a trade union. What provisions should be included in the rules? Name of the trade union, objects of the trade union, list of members and list of office bearers, etc. Now we'll discuss about power to call for further particulars and to require alteration of name. Registrar has the power to call for further particulars and to require alteration of name if he finds and thinks fit. Now we'll discuss about the registration. Registration. The registrar, on being satisfied that the trade union has complied with all the requirements of his act in regard to registration, shall register the trade union by entering in a register. This says that if the registrar is satisfied that all requirements of the act are fulfilled, what he does in the register of trade unions, he will enter the name of a trade union. Then the registration will be completed. Then the next step is certificate of registration. Certificate of registration. The registrar shall issue a certificate of registration in the prescribed form, which shall be the conclusive evidence. Conclusive evidence that the trade union has been duly registered under this act. Conclusive evidence means that this is the final evidence, final proof. Once a person shows this certificate of registration, nobody can object as to the registration of the trade union. So let me repeat the points. We are discussing about registration of trade union, and in registration we are dividing the steps of registration into several points. 8 points we have made. The first point is appointment of registrars. Registrar means a registrar appointed by appropriate government, and the government can appoint any number of registrars. Then we are discussing about the powers of registrars. Their power is to register or reject the application. Next power is to issue the certificate of registration, cancel the certificate of registration, dissolution of registration, amalgamation of trade unions. Then we are discussing about the mode of registration. Mode of registration: any 7 or more persons of a trade union may apply for registration of a trade union. Then we are discussing about the application for registration. 7 or more persons apply to the registrar application for registration, and application of registration includes rules and a statement, and this statement contains the details of the persons making the application, details of office bearers, and the name of the trade union and the address of the head office. Then we discussed about the provisions to be contained in the rules, what should be included in the rules, like the name of the trade union, objects of the trade union, members of the trade union, and office bearers of the trade union, and several other points. Then we discussed about power to call for further. Registrar has the power to call for further particulars and to require alteration of name if he thinks fit. Then we discuss about the registration, that the registrar, on being satisfied that the trade union has complied with all the requirements of this act, he shall register the trade union by entering in the register. Then what will the registrar do after entering in the register? He will issue a certificate of registration, and this certificate of registration is the conclusive proof. Now we will discuss what is the effect and advantages of registration. Effect and advantages. We will be discussing about 5 points. We will be discussing about 7 points. Let us start. First effect, certificate of registration. This is the conclusive proof. Conclusive proof. Second, body corporate. A trade union is recognized as a juristic person, just like company. Company is a juristic person. Juristic person. What is the meaning of juristic person? Suppose human beings are there. These are natural persons. The persons other than the human beings, like company, corporations, who are recognized as persons in law, are called juristic persons. So trade union is also a juristic person. That is, though it is not in existence in real, it has special status of a person in law. And the trade union can deal with the third parties, purchase properties, etc. in its own name, though it is not a natural person. So this is called juristic person. So what we are saying is trade union is a juristic person. A trade union is formed by association of workers. Association workers form the trade union, but it is distinguished from its members. That is, it has a separate legal identity. It has its own entity and identity. From the date of certificate of registration, it comes into existence. It acquires a special status in the eye of law. What we are saying is that from the date of certificate of registration, it comes into existence. It becomes a juristic person. And though there are natural persons behind it, these natural persons have formed the trade union, even though the trade union is separate from the members, and it has a special legal status. The third point is perpetual succession. Perpetual succession. Perpetual succession means the life of the trade union does not depend on the life of its members who have formed it. Members may come and members may go, but the trade union goes on forever. It dies only when its registration is withdrawn or cancelled by the competent authority. As long as the trade union has its certificate of registration, it goes on. The members who have formed the trade union may die, may resign. No, there will be no impact on trade union. Trade union will continue as long as the certificate of registration is there with it. Fourth point, common seal. Common seal. The registered trade union enjoys a common seal of its own. Its name and seal cannot be used by others. Fifth point, acquisition of properties. Acquisition of properties. A registered trade union can purchase movable or immovable properties on its own name. The trade union can purchase movable or immovable properties in its own name. How it is possible? Because it is a juristic person and it has a special legal status, independent identity. It is a separate person in the eyes of law. Acquisition of properties. A registered trade union can purchase movable or immovable properties on its own name. Similarly, it can also sell them if necessity arises. It can purchase the property, it can sell the properties. The properties of the trade union are not the properties of the members. Though the members have formed the trade union and the trade union has purchased the properties, this property does not belong to the members. Then, sixth point, capacity to sue. Capacity to sue. A registered trade union can sue or be sued on its own name. There is a registered trade union. For registered trade union, we are writing RTU. This registered trade union can sue others, and others can also sue registered trade union. Then seventh point, returns. Every registered shall submit annual returns to the registrar of trade union. A registered trade union has to submit to the registrar of trade union annual returns.
Now we will discuss the difference between registered trade union and unregistered trade union. A registered trade union has several advantages. There are several advantages of a registered trade union. An unregistered trade union has no advantages. A registered trade union is a juristic person. An unregistered trade union is not a juristic person. It is only an association of persons. Third point, a registered trade union can sue or can be sued on its own name. Can sue and can be sued in its own name. Unregistered trade union cannot sue or be sued on its own name. Fourth point, it has a perpetual succession. it has no perpetual succession. No perpetual succession. A registered trade union can acquire properties on its own name. How can it acquire properties on its own name? Because it is a juristic person. Properties can be acquired in its own name. Unregistered trade union cannot acquire properties in its own name. 6th point. It can contract in its own name. Unregistered trade union cannot contract in its own name. I repeat, we are talking about the differences between a registered trade union and an unregistered trade union. Registered trade union has several advantages. Unregistered trade union has no advantages. Registered trade union is a juristic person, is a legal person, is separate from the members. Unregistered trade union is not a juristic person. It is only an association of persons. A registered trade union can sue or can be sued in its own name. Unregistered trade union cannot sue or be sued in its own name. 4th point, registered trade union has perpetual succession, that it goes on forever even if the members who have created the trade union die. Unregistered trade union does not have any perpetual succession. If the persons who have created the trade union die, even the trade union ceases to exist. 5th point, it can acquire properties in its own name. Unregistered trade union cannot acquire properties in its own name. 6th point, registered trade union can contract in its own name. Unregistered trade union cannot contract in its own name. Now we will discuss about the rights and liabilities of registered trade unions. Rights and liabilities of registered trade unions. Right to inspect books of trade union. First is what? Books. The account books of a registered trade union and the list of members thereof. The account books plus list of members. Shall be open to inspection by an office bearer or member of the trade union. Trade union's member or office bearer can inspect the account books and even the list of members. Second right. Rights of minors to membership of trade unions. Rights of minors. Any person who has attained the age of 15 years, greater than or equal to 15 years, may be a member of the trade union. I repeat, rights and liabilities of the trade union. First right is inspection of books of accounts. The member or the office bearer of the trade union can inspect the account books plus list of members. Second, rights of minors. Any person who has attained the age of 15 years may be a member of the registered trade union. Now we will discuss about the disqualifications of office bearers of the trade union. Disqualifications office bearers. There are two disqualifications. Number 1, the person is less than 18 years of age. Second one, he has been convicted by a court. He has been convicted by a court of any offense involving moral turpitude, and sentenced to imprisonment. So there are two disqualifications. The person is less than 18 years of age, and the second one is convicted by a court of an offense involving moral turpitude and sentenced to imprisonment. What is moral turpitude? Is a very, very bad crime which the person has done, and the society totally opposes such crime. That is, it is very shameful crime. Now we will discuss immunities provided for registered trade unions. Immunities provided for the registered trade unions. This is a very important question. It has been asked several times in the OU examinations. Discuss the immunities available to the trade unions from civil and criminal liabilities. Immunities from civil and criminal liabilities. Or another type of question can be asked from this, like, what are the privileges and immunities of the trade unions and its office bearers in labor law? Immunities of the trade union and office bearers. So these are the types of questions that can be asked. So first we'll understand what is the meaning of immunity. Immunity means exemption from any obligation. Exemption from any obligation. Immunity from criminal conspiracy. Immunity from criminal conspiracy. No office bearer or member of a registered trade union. There is a registered trade union, its office bearer or its member. No office bearer or member of a registered trade union shall be liable to punishment in respect of any agreement made between the members for object of the trade union. The agreement made between the members for the object of the trade union. This is important. The agreement made between the members for the object of the trade union. Then the office bearer or the member is not liable to punishment. If this agreement is an agreement to commit an offense, then such office bearer or the member is liable to punishment. The object of this section is to safeguard trade union and its office bearers and members from the mighty employer and his political, money influence, and harassment over them. This immunity is not an absolute right. I repeat, this immunity is not an absolute right. It depends upon the circumstances. So what are we discussing here? We are discussing about the immunity from criminal conspiracy. No office bearer or the member of a registered trade union shall be liable to punishment in respect of any agreement made between the members for the purpose of object of the trade union. And if the agreement is for offense, then such office bearer or the member is liable to punishment. Next, immunity from civil suit in certain cases. Here we have discussed about criminal immunity from criminal cases. Now we will discuss about immunity from civil cases, civil suits. Immunity from a civil suit to registered trade union or any office bearer of the registered trade union or a member of the registered trade union. This immunity from civil suits is available to the registered trade union, its office bearer, and its member. The immunity applies exclusively on the ground that their act is in interference with trade or business or employment. I repeat, we are discussing immunities provided for registered trade unions. Immunity means exemption from any obligation. Immunity from criminal conspiracy. No office bearer or member of a registered trade union shall be liable to punishment in respect of any agreement made between the members for the objects of the trade union. If the agreement is for the object of the trade union, then the office bearer or the member is not liable. If the agreement is to commit an offense, then the office bearer or member is liable. Civil suits, immunity from civil suits. To whom such immunity is available? Such immunity is available to the registered trade union, its office bearers, and its members. Dissolution of registered trade unions. Dissolution. Dissolution means trade union coming to an end, dissolving. Notice of dissolution. Notice of dissolution signed by 7 members. Signed by 7 members and by the secretary of the trade union plus secretary of the trade union. This notice shall be sent to the registrar and shall be registered by him. So how is dissolution possible in a trade union? We have discussed already that 7 members, minimum 7 members form the trade union. So for dissolving also we need 7 members. So 7 members plus secretary of the trade union prepare a notice, sign the notice and send it to the registrar of the trade union. If registrar is satisfied, he registered the dissolution notice and the trade union is dissolved. Now we will discuss about collective bargaining. Collective bargaining. As the name itself suggests, collective means together, bargaining means negotiation or discussion. So collective bargaining together means discussion in a group or discussion by forming a group. The employer is superior in position due to his wealth. Employer is superior because of his wealth. But employee is economically weaker than the employer. Employee is not in a position to bargain with his employer. So, a group of employees will face this problem. How they'll face? They will form a group and they'll collectively bargain with the employer. It is like a small rope cannot bind an elephant, but the combination of ropes can bind an elephant. This is the principle underlying in the collective bargaining. A trade union or a group of representatives of workers can successfully bargain with the employer. We will do a quick recap of the unit 1 that we have discussed just now. First, what we have discussed is history of the trade union movement in India, where we have said that trade union is a continuous association of wage earners for the purpose of maintaining or improving the conditions of their working lives. The birthplace of trade unionism was first started in Great Britain. From Great Britain, the trade unionism crept in India. And to study the history of the trade unionism in India, we can divide it into 3 periods as follows. Period prior to the First World War, period between the 2 world wars or up to the independence, and post-independence period till now. Then we discussed about the definition of trade union. Trade union means any combination, whether temporary or permanent, formed for the purpose of regulating the relations between workmen and employers, or between the workmen, or between one employer and another employer. And it includes even the Federation of Trade Unions. Then we discussed about the trade dispute. Trade dispute covers disputes between employers and workmen, or between workmen themselves, or between one employer with another employer. Then we discussed about the registration of trade unions, which is important, and we divided the steps into 8 categories. The first one being the appointment of registrars, where we said that for the first one being the appointment of registrars, second is powers of registrars, third is mode of registration, fourth is application for registration, fifth is provisions to be contained in the rules of a trade union, sixth is power to call for further information, 7th registration, and 8th certificate of registration. First, appointment of registrars. Where we said that appropriate government appoints the registrars, and there can be any number of registrars. Then we discussed about powers of registrars. Registrar has power to do the registration, issue certificate of registration, cancellation of registration, dissolution of registration, amalgamation of trade unions, etc. Then we discussed about mode of registration, where we said that 7 or more persons can form a trade union and apply for registration. Then we discussed about application for registration. Application of registration is sent by 7 or more persons to the registrar, and the application is accompanied by rules and statement contains the names, occupations and addresses of 7 members, that is details of the 7 members, details of the office bearers, and the name of the trade union and the address of the head office. Provisions to be contained in the rules of a trade union, objects of the trade union, list of members, list of office bearers. Power to call for further particulars if the registrar requires. Registration. The registrar, on being satisfied, registers the trade union and enters the name of the trade union in the register. Certificate of registration. It's a conclusive proof. Effects and advantages of trade union. Certificate of registration is a conclusive evidence. Body corporate. A trade union is recognized as a separate juristic person. Perpetual succession. Members may come, members may go, but the trade union remains forever. Common seal. The registered trade union enjoys a common seal of its own. Acquisition of properties. A registered trade union can acquire properties. It has the capacity to sue and can be sued. Returns. A registered trade union has to file annual returns with the registrar of trade union. Then we discussed about the differences between the registered trade union and unregistered trade union, where we said that registered trade union has several advantages. The unregistered trade union does not have those advantages. It is a juristic person, it is not a juristic person, it can be sued in its own name, it cannot be sued in its own name. It has a perpetual succession, it does not have a perpetual succession. It can buy and sell properties, it cannot buy and sell properties. It can contract in its own name, it cannot contract in its own name. Rights and liabilities of registered trade union. Right to inspect books of accounts of the trade union. Right of minors to membership of the trade unions, where the person may be appointed as a member if he is of the age of 15 years. Disqualifications of office bearers of the trade union. A person is disqualified if he has not attained the age of 18 years or he has been convicted by a court in India of any offence involving moral turpitude and sentenced to imprisonment. Then we discussed about the immunities provided to the registered trade unions. That is, immunity means exemption from obligation, immunity from criminal conspiracy. That if the agreement is for the objects of the trade union, then the immunity is available, and if the agreement is for the offence, then the immunity to the office bearers and the members is not available. Immunity from civil suits. Registered trade unions, office bearers and members have the immunity. Dissolution. Dissolution of trade union. 7 or more members along with the secretary's signature send the notice of dissolution to the registrar. Then the registrar writes in the register and the trade union is dissolved. Then we discussed about collective bargaining. Collective means together, bargaining means negotiation or discussion.
Thank you for watching my videos, friends. If you find my videos useful, please click on the like button just below the video. Click on the subscribe button. It is displayed in the red color as shown here. Third step, click on the bell icon to get notified when I upload new videos. When you click on the subscribe button, it turns white color and this icon will be displayed. Click on the bell icon. With this, when I upload new videos, you will be notified automatically. Thank you so much.